Hey there, I'm Dave Lemieux and I am here early morning here to talk about the Grateful Dead's new box set. I know it's a highly anticipated, eagerly awaited announcement and very happy to be making it today. Here I am filming this at the end of July. It's something we've been working on for about a year. If you're watching this, you probably already know what it is. We're very excited. It's 8 shows spread over 19 CDs, 8 complete shows from the spring tour of 1978. Now, this is one that I can say, I won't say we've been sitting on it for a long time, but it's one we've just waited for the time to be right for it to happen. And we feel that now is the time, and we're very excited about this one. So if you're watching this, you might already know, but if not, it's 8 of the first 9 shows of the spring tour of 1978. Now, the reason it's not all 9, one of the shows in the first 9 was already released as part of the Dave's Pick series, the Williamsburg, Virginia show on April 15th, but we'll get to that in a bit. So what this is, it's April 6th when the tour started in Tampa, Florida, through April 16th in Huntington, West Virginia. You probably know these shows from your tape trading days. I certainly do. These were really the cornerstone of my 1978 collection from my tape trading days. Coming in around probably 1988 or so, 87, 88, when the Betty boards started circulating. We all got Cornell and Boston and Buffalo and things like that. And then the spring tour of 1978. And it's a whole different beast than 1977 Grateful Dead. It's some magnificent playing. It's some music. Over the past 5 or 6 years, we've actually thought of doing a few of these other shows as part of the Dave's Pick series, but we decided to kind of hold them together as one big box set. We did jump the gun with as I mentioned, the Williamsburg show on April 15th, but that's okay. I hope you don't mind. These are great shows. So the Dead, they started, it's really a tour of the South before they kind of hit more, I guess it would be kind of the North and then the Midwest a little bit, ending in Normal, Illinois on April 24th. But they open up in Tampa, Florida, before heading to Pembroke Pines and then Jacksonville. So they open with 3 shows in 3 nights in 3 cities in Florida. And I mean, these are great shows from the very beginning. The opening night in Tampa, the Dead were here, they meant business. It's really, they hadn't played in 2 months. The last shows were the little Midwest tour at the end of January into early February of 1978. Which is really that kind of carryover sound from 1977 Grateful Dead, I find. But then when they came back 2 months later, a lot had gone on in Grateful Dead world. Bobby with Heaven Help the Fool, Jerry working on Cats Under the Stars. They'd been touring relentlessly on their own, and then here they are now touring with the Grateful Dead again. And it's an interesting tour because they do about a 3-week tour, and then they take about a week and a half off. And then they hit the road again for a whole nother tour in May, which is, again, a very different sound than this April Grateful Dead sound. They're really just constantly playing, growing, I will say. They're changing their sound in a very good way. They're kind of adding on to what they've been doing and playing these incredible shows, I think, every night. And the nice thing about it, 1978 has in the past got a rap about being kind of, whereas 1976 and 77, these wild set lists, wild performances. 78 was where they kind of created the format that would go on for the next 17 years. But in creating that format, they certainly didn't, what's the phrase, sit on their laurels. They certainly didn't sit back and let things happen. They really created some incredible shows every single night. So, you're going to get a different, not only obviously set list, but a different structure every single show. You've got shows where they do these incredible Icos. And if you know Ico from the 80s and the 90s, this is a very different beast than that. It's a very much, it's a laid back, these slinky versions of Ico. You get Still Dancing in the Street is still in the set list. You get these crazy Dancing in the Streets. Franklin's Tower in late 77, the Dead had stopped playing Help on the Way and Slipknot. So Franklin's Tower is now a bit of a free agent in the set list. So you never know where it's going to come, and there's a surprise Franklin's Tower popping up. You've got Scarlet Fire, now been in the repertoire for about a year. Scarlet had been in since '74. Fire joined in March of 1977, joined to Scarlet for the, well, pretty much for the next 17, 18 years. But the Scarlet Fires at these shows are just, again, they're magnificent. They're so good. Estimated Prophet, again, another song had been in the repertoire for about a year or so, joined in February of '77. These Estimated Prophets, to me, are the peak of it. These are the best. I'm a huge fan of every year of Estimated Prophet. I get asked a lot, what are my top 10 favorite Grateful Dead songs? And Estimated is always one of them. I mean, I'll say too that my top 10 list is usually about 20 or 30 songs, but Estimated's always up there with a lot of other songs. Eyes of the World, these are incredible versions of Estimated Eyes, truly some of the best they ever played. But again, every show on this run, on this 8 of these 9 first shows of the tour, are magnificent. The ballads, everything. So we'll kind of go through the tour a little bit. So they open up, like I mentioned, in Tampa before heading to Pembroke Pines and Jacksonville. Each night very different in terms of energy, in terms of performance quality, obviously set list, and a lot of surprises. As I mentioned, these Icos coming out of places. Really, really wonderful set list. The first sets, they're having a lot of fun in these first sets. There's a lot of the kind of mellower Jerry songs, Friend of the Devil, Peggy-O, things like that. And then, of course, the more upbeat songs like Brown-Eyed Women and Tennessee Jet and things like that. Bertha, Good Lovin'. Such a great combination. And then Bobby is having so much fun. I mean, with Jackstraws, Passenger, Lazy Lightning Supplication, terrific versions of Looks Like Rain, Music Never Stopped, on, and Donna Jean. I mean, her singing in '76 when they came back, I think, was a whole nother level. '77, I think it even got better. In '78, I hear it as a peak of Donna Jean's singing with the Dead. It's so good and so perfect. In so many of the songs, I can't imagine from this era without her. She's kind of part of that defining sound when I think of these songs. So incredible. Keith, still so vibrant, so alive, pushing the boundaries constantly. Phil and the drummers, and we'll get to the drummers in a minute, because there's a lot going on in terms of Billy and Mickey at these shows. So after Florida, they take a day off. Then they go to Atlanta for 2 shows at a theater, at the Fox Theater. So they've been playing kind of these arenas, these multi-purpose arenas for those first 3 shows in Florida. Then they hit the Fox Theater in Atlanta, where they had played in 1977, a couple of shows a year earlier in May. And boy, the Atlanta shows are really good. And then right after Atlanta, no days off, straight up to Duke. Now the Duke Show, you probably know it. Whether it's a tape, whether it's the video that the Duke Student Union crew made, April 12th, '78. Duke Show could be, I mean, maybe it's the video bias, but Duke Show is truly one of the most magnificently powerful shows I've ever heard the Dead do. And when you see the video, if you get a chance, and I think we might be able to do something with it on check out dead.net and the YouTube channel. Marty, you're doing a great job, by the way. So check that out, because I think we'll try and get some of those pieces up. But if you look at the Truckin' and the US Blues, the band is so animated, so clearly having a good time. And once you see that, and then you listen to the rest of these shows, and you kind of hear that energy throughout this 2-week run of shows, you realize that this is what the band was doing in 1978. They're having a total blast. So check that out. Incredible Duke Show. There's a reason, as you know, when we do these box sets, we generally always do a show as the breakout. Sometimes we do a compilation, I should say, but usually it's one show. When we did the Pacific Northwest, we broke out the Portland show from May 19th of '74. We also did a compilation on that, but we broke that out. We always tend to break something out. In this case, we've broken out the Duke Show as a CD or an LP as a vinyl, and it sounds magnificent. Again, these are all Betty boards, all mastered by Jeffrey Norman, and they sound great. Jeffrey, once again, you've outdone yourself. I mean, I've been now listening to these shows for 36 years and working on this box set for a little over a year, and which means I've been doing my own listening, and then every time Jeffrey masters something, listening to that. Jeffrey, it's never sounded better. As somebody who's listened to these tapes for 36 years, it's never sounded better. It sounds incredible. So the Duke Show, it's a standalone. If you don't get the whole box set and you just want the Duke Show, or maybe you get the box set and you want the Duke Show on vinyl, it is all available for you. And then after Duke, another day off. I'm sure they use those rest days wisely, you know, build up for the next 3-night run. And the next 3 nights, like the Florida run, was 3 shows in 3 days in 3 cities. So on the Blacksburg, Virginia show, come on, April 14th, it's so good. Very close to having come out previously on Dave's Picks. And after that, of course, Williamsburg, Virginia, which has been released as part of the Dave's Pick series with the Morning Dew, the first Morning Dew in a long time, and it'll be the last Morning Dew for another 1.5 years. So Williamsburg, if you have the Dave's Picks, do check it out. Maybe while you're listening to the box set, slip in the Dave's Picks as you get to the April 15th night. And then April 16th, wrapping up our box set, is the Huntington, West Virginia show. First time in West Virginia, first of only 2 times. I think they went back there in '83 in Morgantown. Truly a show that when we were deciding which show to do as the standalone, as the breakout show, it was either going to be the Huntington show or the Duke show. We're very happy we went with Duke, but that's not to say Huntington someday might not come out on its own down the road, maybe a record store day thing or something. It's that good. It's a show that certainly merits being heard. The tide's coming in, so I mean, I'm not in danger of getting wet, but it's I'm seeing the beach behind, and the water is coming up pretty quickly, so good to see. Got a kayaker paddling out behind me in a minute. I've got a little screen here that I can see what's going on behind me, which is always kind of fun. Yeah, actually went the other way. Beautiful morning, by the way. It is a little smoky. We've got some wildfires up here in British Columbia, so it's not as bad as it's been in past years, but I can smell it for sure. I can feel it in my throat. Anyhow, so the shows, very diverse, very dynamic. It's interesting. There's a lot of songs in here that they just kind of slipped in. They kind of came out of nowhere. And it's like, oh yeah, that one. Dupree's Diamond Blues, the box set has one of those. It's like, that's a song that came back in the fall of '77, played very little, a little bit in '78, including in this box set, and then gone again for quite some time. Brought back, thankfully, in the mid-'80s. I'm a big fan of the 100 Grateful Dead shows I saw. I only saw the Dead play Dupree's Diamond Blues once. Very grateful that I did. But again, a rarity. So you get that, but something that I do want to talk about. As you know, the box set, Friend of the Devils, and the Dead going back to the 60s had always done, not always, but they'd frequently and mostly always done a drum break during their shows, whether it was in the 60s when they would do the drum break in the other one between Cryptical and Bob's, the other one part of the song, in the That's It for the Other One suite. You'd get a nice drum break with Billy and Mickey, and Alligator, of course. Alligator, usually a big drum break before it would go into a jam or caution. So drums is always a part of it. Then when Mickey left the band for a couple of years, or a few years, 3 years in the early '70s, Billy would generally every night do a drum solo, and it was short, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and oftentimes it would be, trucking into the drum solo into the other one or something like that. The brand new Dave's Picks from Scranton, Pennsylvania has a nice little drum break as it goes into Good Lovin'. So, and then in '76, and then, so I would go through '74, '76, they came back from the hiatus, and those are generally a Mickey and Billy drum duet, a couple minutes, 3 minutes. Even a song like Let It Grow had a little 1 minute drum break in the middle of it. So they would generally do it. '77, same thing, although not every night. You think of the most famous show of them all, Cornell, there's no drum break at all. There's no drums, there's no space, there's no big jam. It's just straight up rock and roll the whole way. So there was no set format until this tour. So it was on this tour where from the opening night, my guess is a decision was made, because the previous tour in January into February of 78, there were drum breaks, but nothing like this. It was, again, it was a little 4 or 5 minute drum break in the second set. It was on this tour, opening night, Tampa, where the Dead started doing big drums, which, you know, Rhythm Devils is kind of what we've labeled it, and it's what we call it in the taping world. I've labeled my tapes Rhythm Devils, starting at this time, and so they start doing these 10-minute drum breaks, and they were incredible. They were, you know, they had a whole new array of drums behind them. They had the beam, they had the, you know, Mickey had so much going on, and then as the tour went on, like a day or two into it, they started putting out more and more percussion instruments. And a few shows into the tour, the rest of the band, Jerry, Keith, everybody, the crew was invited up to join in during this drums break part of the show. And it got to the point where it was going up to 10 minutes, and then 12 and 14 minutes. And then it clocked in at 20 minutes, and then it clocked at 23, 24 minutes. These are incredible drum breaks. These are tribal. These are, you know, I can imagine being at a show. I saw a lot of Grateful Dead shows with incredible drums in space. Truly one of my favorite parts of the show, because that to me is when the Dead are truly improvising. I mean, they're always improvising. They're always doing something that they're maybe had never done before. But drums in space is when they're creating new music right there on the spot. So I always really love that. These ones take that to another level. And they're hypnotic, they're meditative. I mean, I absolutely love these Rhythm Devils portions of the show, and hence the title of the box, Friend of the Devils. Matthew Brannon, by the way, the artist who created this, he was incredibly inspired by the Rhythm Devils portions of the show. And so that's, you know, incredible artwork by Matthew. Thanks for coming through with what you've done. And there's so many elements to it throughout the box. Steve Vance, you've once again done a great job on the layout, working with Matthew, and, you know, Yvette and Brian coordinating the whole thing. So thank you. You know, it's just been an incredible experience. It always is. I mean, this is truly the essence of collaboration, where the whole crew at Rhino, and then, you know, the artist, Matthew in this case, photographers, I mean, so many good, Bob Minkin and Jim Anderson, Steve Silberman's liner notes, come on. I mean, this is a good box set. I mean, I'm throwing out these names, like an artist like Matthew Brannon, that's a treat to work with somebody like that. And then of course, the in-house team of everybody at Rhino and Steve Vance. And then when you hear photographers like Bob Minkin and Jim Anderson, quality stuff inside, and then you add a liner note writer like Steve Silberman. I mean, when I write liner notes sometimes for the Dave's Picks and things like that, and they're fine. I mean, they're just more just kind of personal reminiscences about listening to the show. But then when I read something by a real writer, like Steve Silberman, I realize the difference between a real writer and somebody like me who just kind of puts thoughts on paper. So thanks, Steve. You came through big time. It was been a treat. I've been reading his notes throughout the process. You know, he delivered on time. He delivered a great word count, and he delivered probably some of my favorite notes in any Grateful Dead box set ever. He goes so deep. His research, his analytical thoughts, his thoughts on the music, just as, you know, he's a Deadhead. And so, I mean, just incredible. Thanks, Steve. And thanks to everyone involved in the box, because it is really, really great. So anyhow, head over to dead.net if you're not already there. It is a limited box set. The box itself, there'll probably be an unboxing video, so I'll let the Rhinos take care of that. But I mean, speaking of percussion, you're all invited to beat the drum during Rhythm Devils during these shows, and you'll see about that when you see the box set. It's pretty darn spectacular. So thanks to everybody. Thanks, Lauren, for making this whole thing happen, the video, and being patient with my delivery of said video. But thanks. So check it out. It's some great music recorded by Betty Cantor Jackson, mastered by Jeffrey Norman. Just some really top-notch Grateful Dead. Sounds as good, better than it ever has. And the performances are, I mean, I'm not prone to hyperbole. but honestly, it is relentlessly good. You put on that first show, you put on the last show, you put on CD1, you put on CD19, you put on everything in between. There's so much exciting music in here. It's interesting, it's exciting. The band is clearly having a fun time. So I'm gonna shut the video off with my little video shut off thing. Head to dead.net, it's exclusively available there. The Duke show on CD and vinyl as well. Thank you very much for listening and watching this thing. Beautiful day, and check it out, dead.net. Thanks a lot.